Casey's Top 40.
I'm David Perry, sitting in for Casey Kasem. Well, now we're up to the number one song in the USA on Casey's Top 40, and it's by a newcomer recently praised by Time magazine because she's not a tall, leggy model. In fact, Time thinks she's great because she's not glamorous at all. In their article on this hot new singer, Time praises her for being, well, a real person. They begin by saying she looks like the kind of girl boys pick on in the 4th grade. The article then goes on to describe the singer as wearing, quote, big, goofy tortoiseshell glasses, and finally says her knees knock and she has a tendency to stand pigeon-toed, unquote. But to the editors of Time, these aren't negative qualities. Instead, they say these are the things that help make the new singer so popular. They say geekiness is actually the secret to her appeal, that she's in the forefront of a movement towards real people in pop music. And they went on to praise other unaffected, non-glamorous singers like Edie Brickell, Natalie Merchant of 10,000 Maniacs, and Melissa Etheridge as good examples of the return of the girl next door on the charts. In the end, of course, it's not looks that make a hit, but music. Music like the song that for the second week in a row is the biggest hit in the land. The number one song in the USA on Casey's Top 40 is Stay, I Missed You by Lisa Loeb and her band 9 Stories.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem, and that means we're up to the number one song in the USA on Casey's Top 40, and it's by a singer who was so impressed by Sting and the Police that she abandoned classical music and once put together a band just like them, a complete Police sound-alike. The woman who sings this week's number one grew up in Dallas, Texas in the late 70s and early 80s. Her family was musically inclined, and her parents made sure that she and her brother had the opportunity to study the piano, especially classical piano. Both of them worked hard at the instrument and became very good at it. But while her brother decided to continue playing works by Beethoven, Bach, and Brahms, she turned elsewhere to works by Summers, Copeland, and Sting, the 3 British rockers who made up the trio called The Police. She just loved the sound of their songs like Roxanne, Don't Stand So Close to Me, and Every Breath You Take. She was so taken with the Police that along with 2 other friends, she decided to start a garage band based on the British trio, a complete Police sound-alike. Each one of the would-be musicians picked a band member that they wanted to be, and day after day they got together to listen to Police albums and practice, learning Police songs note by note. Not much came of that copycat band, but it did get the woman who formed it on her way to a professional career in music, a career that eventually took her from Dallas to New York, and from complete obscurity to the top of the chart. The number one song in the USA on Casey's Top 40 for the 3rd week in a row is Stay, I Missed You by Lisa Loeb and her current band 9 Stories.
You say I only hear what I want to.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. Well, now we're up to the current hit by Lisa Loeb and 9 Stories, a band that took its name, 9 Stories, from a book by a reclusive man who hasn't appeared in public in over 40 years, the man who wrote The Catcher in the Rye. He's J.D. Salinger, and when The Catcher in the Rye came out back in 1951, it was a huge sensation. The story of teenage anguish and alienation captured the hearts of young people everywhere. Years before, those same themes became the core of a new music called rock and roll. In his career, J.D. Salinger has written 4 books in all. The last of them was published in the early 60s, and J.D. Salinger hasn't been heard from in print since then, which is consistent with his general attitude towards fame. The last time he made a public appearance was over 40 years ago, back in 1953. Since then, he's lived at his home in the town of Cornish, New Hampshire, where people claim to occasionally sight him shopping at the market. But they're not really sure that the shy old fellow they see is really J.D. Salinger. The 75-year-old author may be reclusive, but his writings continue to influence one generation after another. The confused young man in The Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield, has been the model for one tragic teen hero after another. And Salinger's collection of 9 short stories, appropriately titled 9 Stories, gave Lisa Loeb the name for her band.
The singer at number 17 knows what she likes and dislikes. Lisa Loeb says she likes sparkly things, good cats, lemon ice cream, cryptograms, and orange roses. She doesn't like spitting, pollen, smokers on the street, being put on hold on the telephone. Hey, I don't know anyone who likes being put on hold, especially when you're put on hold before they say anything. Is that a uniquely American problem? Here's Lisa and 9 stories with Stay.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to the latest hit for Lisa Loeb, a singer and guitar player whose first instrument was the piano. But she stopped playing the piano because she couldn't play it around a campfire. Lisa Loeb grew up in Dallas, Texas, and she began taking piano lessons when she was just a child. For a while, Lisa enjoyed the lessons. She learned a few classical pieces and learned to have fun playing music. But Lisa didn't like the fact that she couldn't share her fun with her friends. And by the time she was 13 years old, she had all but given up on the piano. Lisa says the only time she ever played was at her lessons. She had completely stopped practicing at home. Still, Lisa loved to play music. So one night she sat down with her father and talked about starting a new instrument. And the instrument she chose was the guitar. Lisa says, quote, "My dad and I realized that the guitar was an instrument I could take with me to camp and play. With my friends, I could play popular music on it. I could carry it around, which meant I could even play it in my room," unquote. Lisa says that after she got her first acoustic guitar, she gave her very first performance at camp. It was in front of all of her friends sitting around the campfire. Lisa says she played her guitar, sang a song, and everyone had a lot of fun. These days, Lisa's still playing her guitar, as you can hear on her latest hit, the song that moves up 2 notches to number 13 on Casey's Top 40. Along with her band 9 Stories, this is Lisa Loeb and Do You Sleep?
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to Do You Sleep? It's by a singer who started writing it when she was in college, and she didn't finish until 6 years later. When it comes to making her music, 27-year-old Lisa Loeb says she simply cannot be rushed. Whenever she gets an idea for a song, she'll grab a piece of paper and write down a few lines. Then she sets it aside until she comes up with more. Lisa says there are songs she's still working on that she began writing when she was in her teens. And she began writing her current hit, Do You Sleep, 6 years ago during her senior year at college. But she didn't finish it until this year when she recorded it for the CD Tales. Lisa says it was based on something that happened to her, which she'd rather not talk about. But she did write about it in the lyrics. The song is about the full range of emotions a person goes through in and after a relationship. Lisa says, quote, "On the one hand, you're still longing for this person to want you the same way. But on the other hand, you don't ever want to see them again," unquote. Lisa spent 6 years putting the song together, and now in 1995, it's become her second Top 40 hit.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to the latest hit for Lisa Loeb, a singer who has an unusual intellectual pastime. She keeps her mind occupied by solving complicated mathematical equations. From her horn-rimmed glasses and bookish looks, you might think Lisa has a strong intellectual side, and you'd be right. She doesn't just look smart, she is smart. Lisa graduated from New England's prestigious Brown University, where one of her favorite subjects was mathematics. Lisa was such a math whiz in college that some of her highest marks were in calculus and advanced mathematical theory. She says she loves the logic of mathematics, the way everything seems to work out so perfectly. To this day, Lisa uses math problems to relax. The members of her touring band say they're often amazed to find the singer on their tour bus with a legal pad full of complicated numbers in front of her. She'll just be sitting there with a smile on her face, happily working out the details of what for them would be a mathematical nightmare. Aside from complicated math equations, Lisa seems to have figured out the equation for musical success. This week, her third Top 40 hit climbs 2 notches to number 29 on Casey's Top 40. This is Lisa Loeb and her band 9 Stories with Waiting for Wednesday.
Casey's Top 40.
For Casey Kasem, I'm David Perry on Casey's Top 40. Now we're up to the latest hit by a woman who has something in common with Richard Marx, Barry Manilow, and Luther Vandross. They've all sung on commercial jingles. It's one of the ways that struggling musicians get by, and they can get by very well, too. Singing on commercials can pay big bucks if the ads get a lot of airplay. Because Richard Marx's father was a jingle writer and producer, Richard landed his first job singing on commercials when he was just 5 years old, and he continued to sing in jingles for soft drinks and food chains well into his teens. Barry Manilow made a very good living writing jingles for products like Dr. Pepper, State Farm, Pepsi, and Band-Aids. He even sang the jingle for the world's largest fast food chain, You Deserve a Break Today, for McDonald's. Luther Vandross did his singing for AT&T, Pepsi, 7-Up, and the U.S. Army, among others. And after graduating from college while trying to make it as a pop singer, Lisa Loeb followed in those illustrious footsteps, singing on jingles for Diet Coke and Burger King. These days, she's singing popular songs like the one that recently spent 5 weeks in the top 10.
Top 40 Countdown.
I'm David Perry. Now we're up to Lisa Loeb, a star who found fame singing a movie song. But she says these days soundtrack songs are off limits. Lisa's breakthrough came in 1994 before she was even signed to a record contract. That's when her song Stay, I Missed You was featured on the Generation X film Reality Bites. While the movie enjoyed modest success, Lisa's song went on to spend 4 weeks at #1. And soon Lisa found herself with a contract and a bright new career. At first, she thought it might be a good idea to create other soundtrack hits. In fact, she tried writing a song with Carol Bayer Sager for the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Junior. But Lisa says it just didn't feel right. She felt even more wrong when she was asked to write a song for a movie being considered by Warren Beatty. What was bothering Lisa Loeb was the simple fact that the movie was getting between her and her songs. So in 1995, she swore off writing movie songs, and she stood by her word ever since. Lisa says she wants people to recognize her talents as a singer, songwriter, and performer, and not as someone whose music is heard somewhere in a film soundtrack. This week, Lisa's current non-movie song is at number 30 on the top 40. From her CD titled Firecracker, this is I Do.
Top 40 Countdown.
I'm Jeff Wyatt, counting down the hits. Now, dropping 2 notches to number 32 is Lisa Loeb. She first hit big in 1994 with her song Stay, I Missed You. And you may remember that back then, her songs were credited to Lisa Loeb and 9 Stories. Well, now that she's credited as a solo artist, Lisa says she still calls her backup band 9 Stories. In fact, in the liner notes to her latest CD, Firecracker, she thanks all members of 9 Stories, past and present.
America's Top Hits.
4 years ago this week, one of the top hits in the USA was a song that wound up in the movie Reality Bites thanks to a lucky coincidence. The movie's star lived in the same Greenwich Village apartment house as the song's singer. It was back in 1994 that Ethan Hawke was living in New York's Greenwich Village working on his career as an actor. When he wasn't acting or auditioning, he hung around local clubs checking out the music. One of the acts he tried never to miss was his neighbor Lisa Loeb and her band 9 Stories. He was a big fan of hers, and so when he landed the starring role in the movie Reality Bites, he suggested to producer Danny DeVito and director Ben Stiller that it would be a great idea to include some music by unknowns on the soundtrack. In particular, an unknown named Lisa Loeb. They liked her sound, and they used a song of hers in the movie, a song that became one of the top hits in the USA 4 years ago this week. Here's Lisa Loeb with Stay, I Missed You.
The hits from coast to coast.
I'm Casey Kasem. We're counting down the hottest songs in the USA. 7 years ago this week, back in 1997, this was one of the hottest songs. It's by a singer who has Lisa Loeb to thank for his career. It was Lisa who encouraged him not to just write songs, but to sing them as well. Here's Duncan Sheik with Barely Breathing. And the countdown continues on AT20.
Counting down the hits.